Hello everyone! You're watching Research is Broken, and in this video, I will tell you how you can start playing Warcry. So Warcry is a fast-paced skirmish game that puts your best fighters against your opponents. I know some people hate the randomness of the scenarios in the game, but I love how it forces you to be flexible and not just rely on one tactic. So what do you need in order to play the game? So right off the bat, if you want to have a no-nonsense, all-in-one box where you get everything you need to play the game, all you have to get is the core set box, and you will have all the components, the dice, the models and terrains, and even the boards. The problem here is you might not want to get everything in the box. For example, do you like the 2 warbands featured in the box? Is the terrain to your liking? I think it's a bad idea just to get the box if there is even one component that you don't like. So let's list down the things you'll need. First, you need miniatures, a measuring tape, a board, terrains, a good number of tokens, and lots of 6-sided dice. For the dice, your hobby shop can give you an assortment of dice that you'll need. What I do suggest is that you get 2 sets of dice with different colors. That's because throughout the course of the game, you'll be rolling for 2 different situations: during initiative and attacking the enemy fighters. Unlike most games, you will be keeping some dice you rolled as a means to pay for your abilities. You will also need a measuring tape to measure the distance your models can move on the board. I recommend that you pick something that can bend, since there will be many scenarios where you will track the movement of your fighters going around opponents and sometimes even the walls and other terrains. So I would suggest either a measuring tape, or I did saw someone use a measuring tape that's for tailoring. That can also work. What makes the game fast for me is the decks that you use to pull out the deployment, victory conditions, and twists in the game. I really like the randomness to it, and I know some players hate how some cards can swing a game, so my suggestion for them is just remove those swingy cards. To those who are now confused in thinking, so must I buy the core box, right? Let me help you out. Alright, so there are 2 ways for you to set up the terrain without using any of the decks. So the first thing that you can do is you guys roll off. The winner then gets to decide which player gets to set up the terrains in the board and which player gets to decide the orientation of the battlefield. That's it. Very simple, right? Another way for you to set up the battlefield is once again to roll off between the players and then alternately putting terrains based on the results of the table that I will show you. So right there. Then after placing all the terrains, you will then again roll off to determine who will decide the orientation of the map. So with these 2 examples, you don't really need the deck for you to set up the terrain. And with that, and just the core book, you guys can now play Warcry. Counters are game aids. These help players keep track of important information like how many wounds are left on a fighter, or if a fighter has already finished their movements. If you're not planning to get the core set and you need counters, getting the Warcry warbands usually give counters along with the models. The only warbands I know of that doesn't give you counters are the iron golems. However, I don't see any reason not to create your own counters. If you are unable to find these things, or maybe you are of the artistic kind and would rather have your own set of counters, just keep in mind in making the following important counters: wound counters, pass or finish actions, and reaction counters. Now those are just the physical stuff that you'll need. Next, you need a rulebook and the stats for your faction. The good thing about this game is that the core rules and the stats for the warband are free. If you want to check them out, check the link in the description. Like all things free, there's a catch. For one, the core rules just teaches the main rules on playing the game. It doesn't have any scenarios and doesn't even talk about the 3 types of game that is supported by Warcry. If you want to get access to all types of games and scenarios for you to play, then you have to get the physical book. Wait, there is one scenario, but it's very boring. So if you want to get more scenarios, get the book, or if you have the old Warcry book, just use those scenarios. Let's talk about the different types of playstyle that you and your group can play in Warcry. So there are the open play, narrative play, and match play. Let's first talk about open play. These types of games are meant to be a game night of one and done for you and your friends. Scenarios can be very wild and swingy, where on one round, a perfect alignment of deployment, victory conditions, and twist can cause a player the game. If the randomness is causing you negative play, I would suggest removing those conditions that are biased towards one player. So yeah, go ahead, talk to your group, which ones you don't like, and take it out. Next, we've got match play. This gives you scenarios where tactical skills are tested. Unlike open play where randomness can affect you, each scenario in match play has a predetermined deployment, victory conditions, and even twist conditions. These types of gameplay are best suited for players who are trying to hold a tournament. I would also warn you that a lot of the scenarios or twists in games are not available in this game since it's more about matchups. Now, if you and your friends are planning to have a long series of games and you want to feel like your characters have grown, the best type of game you could play is the narrative play. This style of gameplay can feel like an RPG game, as the more your fighters play, the more they gain experience and the more they can acquire new skills. They can even acquire artifacts, command abilities for your leader. But with all this stuff that you can gain, there is also a chance for you to lose certain fighters as they die in combat. So yes, this can also be very risky, but it's gonna be fun since it's very fair for both you and your opponents on you having and losing something in your warbands. Let's talk about the Warcry Compendium. Should you buy it or not? It depends. If you have a very few warbands, then nope. Just get the free PDF files in Warhammer Community. The stats listed in the book are just for the factions that existed in the first edition. I can picture someone who has a lot of warbands and don't want to have the hassle of bringing a crappy printout getting the book. The compendium is not complete though, so if you have new warbands that are introduced in the second edition, these are not listed in the book. I now want to talk to veteran players and those who came from previous editions and how we can squeeze out more from this game. What I really like about the second edition is how there is very little change made to it. I like it because the simplicity is kept intact. I can tell you that just playing one round will give most new players the grasp of the game loop. The top changes this new edition brings is the addition of reactions. This new rule allows a new interaction for fighters that have not yet moved. You now have an option of doing something at least during your opponent's turn, but it has the cost of an action for your fighter. I also like the fact that cavalry's limitation is now not as punishing. Finally, they can climb 2 stairs and reach the platform to join in on the fun. Now, all is not great though, because I think that range units have been heavily nerfed, with them not being able to fire upon enemies that have engaged your friendly fighters. So why am I happy that very little has been changed from the previous edition? Well, that means that we can mine previous editions to add more depth to our current game. I know this is no longer available in GW's online store, but they used to sell a scenario deck. The deck contains deployment, maps, victory conditions, and twists. If you don't have the core set terrain in the first edition, the terrain placement will be useless for this deck in your group, but the rest of the cards are very useful. Just expect some wild scenarios because this is the old edition, so sometimes there will be some auto wins on it. My suggestion is to remove some of those negative play experience cards so that you'll have a fun time with you and your group. And because this was the previous edition, there were only 3 rounds usually, so just add 1, make it 4 rounds, and you're really good to go. I remember when the new edition came out and some players were asking around if their old books are still valid. So here's the thing, yes, the old Alliance book and the stats books have mostly been replaced with the new stats, but the scenarios and alternate game styles can easily be ported into the new edition. So now I want to talk about the notable scenarios you can consider in playing for your group. Let's talk about the Tome of Champions. Man, I really miss this book. This was an annual book that GW used to publish, and new developments were added to the game. It even had new match play scenarios so that tournament play won't get stale. In 2020, TOC published a narrative campaign that I think to this day is the best narrative campaign out there. The Silent City, the Soroth Core campaign. In this game, you and your rival's warband try to get into the middle of the strange city that predates the conquest of Archaon of the 8 points. As the game progresses, more challenging scenarios are given to the players and rewards are given as well. I really like it because it has a shadow of Mordheim as your warband tries to take control of a ruined city. Furthermore, this book also offers an update to introduce a hard mode for narrative games. The 2020 issue definitely shined for narrative play experience. For the 2021 issue, what I find useful in the current edition is the introduction of the Blade Board. These are models found in the Underworld's game line. So if you have some models in that game, or if you want to expand your line of fighters for your warband, this tome is really great for you. Another gem found in this book is a siege scenario that is perfect for team games. In the Siege of Karngard, one team will try to prevent the other player's messenger from going through their defensive line. The defender has the advantage of time, while the attacker has a free monster to rampage the defensive line. Let's now talk about free scenarios you can try to find on the internet. Most of these scenarios are no longer found on the download page of the Warhammer community, but a simple Google foo should help you find a link for them. The first scenario I want to talk about is the War of the Morok Hills. In this scenario, the Stormcast Eternals and the Cruel Boys duke it out in 4 different matches. The first 3 matches give you rewards for the final battle culminating in the 4th decisive match to determine which faction wins it all. This scenario is perfect for people who got the Dominion backs, as almost all the models can be used for Warcry. Then we have the Depths of Silontium. I'm not sure if I'm butchering it, but I'm gonna read it as Silontium. In this scenario, the factions of Death and Chaos fight for supremacy. Unlike the first one, this scenario is a team effort. Both teams fight 3 battles and try to enact tactics to gain advantage over their opponents. If you and your group want to have a one-and-done narrative game, this is the perfect scenario for you guys to dip into narrative gameplay. Finally, for something that can currently be found in the Donwloads community, Warcry Rumble, the Donwload Champion. This file contains steps on how to set up a tournament, complete with 6 scenarios for your groups to choose from. There are even multiple tiers for players to gain rewards in this document. Honestly, after reading the core book, I prefer this article over the match play section of the core book. But this document is far more detailed and will inspire you ways to customize your own tournament once you decide to hold one. Hey, you've reached the end of the video. I want to thank you for watching the video, and then hey, just tell me what you think of the video in the comment section below. So I hope I've helped you with starting Warcry without using any of the core bucks. But I know some of you may need more scenarios, so that's why right here in this video that's gonna be shown right here, there should be more scenarios set in GUR for you. So if you're interested in that, or if you want more variety to your game, then come check this video out. So until then, see ya.